What really happened to the giants? In 1911, in the Nevada desert, in a place the local Indians had avoided for centuries, miners made a discovery that should have changed history. Instead, it was buried in archives and forgotten. A crew mining guano from Lovelock Cave for fertilizer broke through an ancient layer of earth. Under decades of accumulated dust, they found a mass grave that made their blood run cold. These weren't ordinary human remains. The skeletons belonged to beings nearly 3 meters tall. Their thigh bones were thick as clubs, built to support enormous weight. Their skulls were so massive they could have held 2 human brains. And on some of the skulls, by some miracle of preservation, patches of coarse red hair still remained attached to the bone. The local Paiute Indians weren't surprised when they heard about the find. Their elders had been passing down stories about these beings for generations. They called them the Si-Te-Cah, fierce red-haired giants who came from across the ocean. According to the legends, these creatures didn't see humans as equals. To them, we were food. The war between humans and giants lasted for centuries until the United Tribes finally drove the last of them into this cave and burned them alive, blocking the entrance with burning brush, physical proof of what the legends described. But where are those bones now? Why won't you see them displayed in the main hall of any natural history museum? In the late 1800s and early 1900s, all across America, from the mounds of Ohio to the caves of Nevada, archaeologists were finding hundreds of giant skeletons. Newspapers at the time, including the New York Times, ran headlines like "Skeletons of Giant Race Found," 3-meter warriors of antiquity, giant in copper armor unearthed. Then something strange would happen. Representatives from the Smithsonian would arrive to collect the findings for study, and the artifacts would disappear forever. John Wesley Powell, director of the Bureau of Ethnology, issued an unofficial directive to destroy or hide any artifacts that contradicted the official history of how America was settled. Anything that didn't fit was declared a hoax, a mistake, or a disease. Ancient texts constantly mention those who came before us. Is it possible that human history was artificially shortened, with its most terrifying participants cut out entirely? If we open the most ancient texts of humanity, giants aren't fairy tale characters, they're historical reality. In the Bible, Genesis says, "There were giants in the earth in those days, when the sons of God came in unto the daughters of men. They were called the Nephilim." The Book of Enoch describes them as beings of incredible strength who taught humans warfare and metalworking. When food ran out, they began devouring people. The Greeks called them Titans. The Norse called them Jotuns. The Sumerians depicted their Anunnaki kings, twice the height of ordinary mortals. Peoples separated by oceans and millennia all describe the same thing. Either collective fantasy or memory of a real race that dominated us. In the 19th century, when settlers pushed into the American West, they didn't find virgin forests and empty prairies. They found ruins of something vast and ancient. The entire land was carved with thousands of artificial mounds and earthworks stretching across the landscape. These weren't chaotic heaps or simple burial sites. They were complex geometric structures, perfect circles, precise squares, regular octagons, and long walls that could only be fully appreciated from above. The mathematical precision amazes even modern surveyors with satellite technology. At the Newark complex in Ohio, there's a giant octagon connected to a perfect circle by a long corridor. The area covered by this structure is so vast that the Great Pyramid of Giza would fit inside it entirely with room to spare. These structures aren't just oriented to cardinal directions, they're aligned with complex astronomical cycles of the moon that repeat only once every 18.5 years. Who could possess such knowledge and power to reshape the landscape of an entire continent? The Indian tribes living there at the time honestly admitted to surprised settlers that this wasn't their work. They said these were built by those who lived here long before them, ancient warriors whom their ancestors exterminated in a great war for survival. When farmers began opening these mounds, driven by curiosity and sometimes greed, they understood why the Indians feared these places and considered them cursed. Inside lay the remains of unusual people. This was a completely different race. County historical reports from the 19th century documented hundreds of excavations, and all of them described the same thing. Morgan County Archives recorded skeleton measuring 8 feet 4 inches, which is 2 meters 54 centimeters. Massive jaws with a double row of teeth, skull of enormous thickness and strength. Kanawha County reported finding a stone crypt containing a skeleton 7 feet 6 inches tall with heavy copper bracelets on its wrists. These weren't just tall people. The skulls had unnaturally high vaults, indicating brain volumes exceeding average humans by 30 or 40%, decorated with thousands of pearls and copper armor. This was aristocracy, the ruling elite of an ancient world. Even future President Abraham Lincoln wrote in 1848, "The eyes of that extinct race of giants, whose bones fill the mounds of America, gazed on Niagara as ours do now." At that time, the existence of giants was a commonly known fact that didn't need defending. But politics changed after the Civil War. The United States government needed to justify that the continent was empty, populated only by primitive nomads. Acknowledging an ancient advanced civilization destroyed this convenient worldview. John Wesley Powell launched a machine to destroy historical memory. Strange entries appeared in Smithsonian reports about collections lost during transport, sudden fires in storage, bones that allegedly crumbled upon contact with air. Thousands of unique skeletons simply vanished from inventory books. The mounds themselves were bulldozed for roads and cornfields. The empire of the giants was erased twice. First by catastrophe in deep antiquity, second by modern bureaucracy that decided the past should be convenient and safe. Among the anatomical oddities found in the mounds and caves, two details appear too frequently to be random. In numerous reports from Lovelock Cave to the Santa Catalina Islands and Florida mounds, researchers describe the jaws. Documents often feature the phrase, "double row of teeth." Modern humans have 32 teeth arranged in one parabola. These creatures had teeth growing in two dense parallel rows, like a shark's mouth, sometimes described as a solid bone palisade, so tight you couldn't insert a needle between them. Teeth always reflect diet. Herbivores need flat, grinding surfaces. Omnivores need a universal set. A double row of sharp, massive teeth in a square jaw serves only one purpose: extreme violence, the perfect tool for capturing live, resisting prey. The double row guarantees that even if the victim jerks away, the death grip won't weaken. This is a tool for tearing sinews and crushing large bones. For a creature that requires enormous amounts of calcium and calories, a creature that literally sucks bone marrow. Indian legends about cannibals weren't stories, they were reports. We weren't their equals. We were protein. The second anomaly, 6 fingers on hands and feet. In the Bible, 2 Samuel describes a giant from Gath, brother of the famous Goliath, who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. Cave paintings in Chaco Canyon and Utah often depict hands with 6 fingers raised in greeting or threat. Skeletons with 6 fingers were found in mounds all across North America, and often these extra fingers weren't rudimentary appendages dangling on skin, but full, functional phalanges with their own joints and muscles. 6-fingeredness, scientifically polydactyly, is a dominant genetic trait. In nature it occurs rarely, but in giants it was genetically fixed, passing from generation to generation. This confirms they weren't just tall people suffering from gigantism or acromegaly. Acromegaly makes bones brittle, porous, and deformed. The bones found in mounds are described by archaeologists as incredibly dense, heavy, and strong, as if carved from ivory. 3-meter height, 6 fingers for better weapon grip and hold, double row of teeth for killing. This is a portrait not of a wise civilization builder, but of a perfect biological killing machine, a super predator that stood at the very top of the food chain. And this predator disappeared. Something in this world became so hostile that even such absolute power couldn't survive. Before we can understand how they died, we need to understand how they could even live. Modern physics is merciless to large sizes. Their hearts can't handle the load. Bones break under their own weight, and this argument is correct, but only for modern Earth conditions. Evidence is locked in amber. When scientists analyze air bubbles frozen in resin millions of years ago, they find oxygen content reaching 30 to 35% versus today's 21%. More importantly, air density was significantly higher. Atmospheric pressure was 1.5 to 2 times higher than current levels. In dense air, oxygen penetrates blood instantly. A giant's heart didn't need to work itself to death. The atmosphere pushed oxygen into tissues. Deep wounds healed in hours. Muscular fatigue practically never set in. This explains the pterosaur paradox. Flying lizards the size of giraffes, like Quetzalcoatlus, couldn't take off in our current atmosphere, but in the dense, thick air of the past, they soared easily. In a world of high pressure and high oxygen, a height of 3 or 4 meters wasn't an anomaly. It was the norm. Their bones were stronger, their metabolism faster. Ancient texts speak of people living 900 years. Under constant oxygen saturation, aging processes slow down and cell regeneration speeds up. This was biological paradise, the age of titans. But then something happened. Ancient texts speak of a flood. Geologists speak of meteorite impact or pole shift. The result was the same. Atmospheric pressure collapsed. Oxygen disappeared. For giants, this was the end of the world. The world that had been their home instantly turned into a gas chamber. Their lungs could no longer saturate their enormous bodies with oxygen. Their hearts began working themselves to death. Earth passed a death sentence on them that we call gravity. There's a law called the square cube law. When height increases threefold, body weight increases cubed by 27 times. But bone strength, which depends on cross-section, only increases squared by 9 times. The structure becomes 3 times heavier than its foundation can support. As soon as such a titan tries to stand, his femur experiences monstrous overload. It can simply explode from within under the weight of flesh, turning into fragments. History knows a tragic example of when nature tried to break these prohibitions in a human body. Robert Wadlow, born in 1918, reached 2 meters 72 centimeters due to pituitary hyperactivity. His life wasn't a fairy tale. It was medical hell. His bones couldn't support him. He required massive metal braces on his legs just to stand. His nervous system couldn't cope. Due to his enormous height, nerve impulses faded, and he could barely feel his feet. His heart worked at its limit. Robert died young from a trivial cause. He rubbed his foot with a metal brace. Due to lack of sensitivity, he didn't notice the wound, and due to poor blood circulation because his heart couldn't pump such volume, sepsis began. The tallest man in history was killed by gravity. Our world kills giants. But not all giants are myth. Some were recognized by science. In 1935, Gigantopithecus was discovered, a 3-meter ape weighing half a ton that lived at the same time as humans, real King Kong. In the Altai, traces of Denisovans were found, people with huge teeth and incredible power. Next to their bones was a bracelet made of chloritolite with traces of lathe drilling. Age 50,000 years. These weren't wild beasts. These were branches of humanity possessing technologies we're only beginning to understand, and all of them disappeared. But did they disappear completely? In 2002 in Afghanistan, an American patrol encountered a creature near a cave that was 4 meters tall. Red hair, double row of teeth, smell of death. The giant killed a Special Forces soldier with a spear, piercing him through. The squad opened fire, but bullets got stuck in its flesh. The monster was killed only with a shot to the eye. The body was removed and classified. Perhaps remnants of the giant race went underground into deep karst cavities, where high pressure is preserved and there's a unique microclimate. There, they're living out their days, having degraded to the state of cave monsters. There's one fact that can't be hidden in archives. It's written directly into our brains: the uncanny valley effect. Why do people experience animal terror at the sight of creatures that look almost human, but with distorted proportions? Robots, large dolls, mannequins. Scientists say instinct is survival experience. We fear spiders because of venom. We fear darkness because of predators. What are we afraid of when looking at a human-like giant? In the history of our species, there was a long period when we were being killed and eaten by creatures that looked like us but were bigger. This fear is a warning system. Attention, this is a predator of your kind. Look at fairy tales of all peoples of the world. The giant is never a kind sage. It's always a stupid, evil man-eater. Jack and the Beanstalk, Odysseus and the Cyclops, David and Goliath. These aren't fantasies. This is documentary chronicle distorted by millennia. We're descendants of those who hid in bushes and burrows while giants walked past. Our psyche holds memory of a war in which we weren't soldiers, but prey. Weak little people overthrew the ancient gods and seized the planet, not with strength, but with efficiency. When the world changed and gravity crushed the giants, they became vulnerable. They required mountains of food, 50,000 calories a day, and food became scarce. We small people were like a swarm. We need little food. We reproduce quickly. We work as a team. We used swarm tactics. We drove them into traps, into swamps where their weight worked against them. We burned them in caves, like at Lovelock. This wasn't a heroic duel. This was a revolt of ants against a wounded elephant. Today, we look in the mirror and see the pinnacle of evolution. Our small stature isn't weakness. It's our armor that saved us from gravity. But somewhere deep inside, when we hear a loud sound or see a huge shadow, that ancient terror awakens. Terror of those who were here before us, and who perhaps still sleep somewhere deep underground, waiting for their time to come again.